Good evening and welcome. We're going to get started tonight. I have my friend here joining me, my little points model that I love to use. Um, Welcome to our final lecture of the Fundamental Theory Basics of Chinese Medicine series. Tonight we are going to speak about the meridians. I hope you enjoyed the last three lectures on the yin and yang and the five elements, the substances and the evils of Chinese medicine. And if you're just joining us tonight, not to worry. We will be using some terminology that has been previously covered, but you should be able to follow along as we talk tonight about the meridians. But I'm actually realizing that meridians all by itself is a word that like maybe not make may not make sense to you. As we talk about the body, I'm going to go ahead and take you through a little bit about what this word is. Meridians or collaterals are English words that we often use to describe specific types of what would be called mai in Mandarin. And the word mai actually means sort of vital circulation. And since most of us aren't using these words in our daily life to describe pathways or repositories, things like meridians or collaterals. We don't use those words very often. And so it gets a little bit lost in translation. But um, I'm going to use the word meridian tonight. There's, like I said, lots of different words. The Chinese word is mai. There's a subset of that called jing. But what I want you to remember is that when you're thinking about meridians, think about flow, right? So whether you call them collaterals, channels, meridians, mai, or jing, those are all words that end up getting used interchangeably, and they have subtle differences when we talk about the translation, but more common than not, you'll hear channels or meridians. And so when you hear those words, I really want you to think um, about flow, all right? And you're sitting there going, flow? Flow of what? My answer is, of course, it's like depending on your perspective, that flow could be talking about chi, it could be talking about blood, electrical impulses, neurotransmitters, cells, and even chemicals. So it's very broad, the concept of flow, but I've used this image here of this sort of like aqueduct, right? You see water flowing through, or if you think about, from a global perspective, when we look at like air flows and those jet stream pathways, the warm air and the cold air, these are all macro images of what the channels and collaterals or the meridians represent in your body. And so when we are looking at that, what we know now is that many of the meridians that were outlined thousands of years ago in classical texts on Chinese medicine, they actually correlate to modern anatomical systems. So, for instance, in this image here, you're going to see that there's a line of fascia, right, which is the stuff that's sort of outside of the muscles and tendons, and but inside the skin that keeps everything kind of all together. But anybody who does body work or has studied fascia knows what we're talking about here, but it's a modern anatomical distinction, right? And that there's a band of fascia that runs from the ankle all the way up to the base of the skull, right? And it follows a pathway that to me looks remarkably similar to what we would call the urinary bladder channel in Chinese medicine. So if you look at the image on the left, you're looking at that fascia image and you can see that pink line flowing up. On the image on the right, you've got that pink line flowing up. These are pathways, and whether we are talking from a Chinese medicine perspective or from a modern perspective, it's all the same stuff, right? And I just love that, again, Chinese medicine kind of had their finger on this one thousands of years ago. That might give you a little bit of context for one of the ways you could interpret a channel or a meridian. But in Chinese medicine, when we're speaking about the meridians, there are 12 primary meridians, and they each correspond to a different system in the body. And they're also grouped into 6 pairs based on their different locations of the hand and the foot. And these primary pathways, plus a couple of bonus ones that are related to yin and yang. You've got a yin one, the ren mai that runs down the front of the body, and the du mai that runs down the back of the body. Um, but um, but these pathways really not only do they provide the basic map for the 360 plus acupuncture points on the body. But the pathway doesn't just lead from point to point. It often takes detours and it connects with the internal organs and the other pathways in the body. And these meetings are often called confluences, and they're kind of one of the complex bits of Chinese medicine anatomy that makes the point system such an elegant healing tool. So, you have 12 channels on your body, as I said, and as you can see in the picture, or if you're looking here, my friend who likes to follow her stool, um, we've got these lines that are running down our body, and those are the surface representations about what the channels are, and but that's kind of like just the beginning, right? So each of the 12 meridians not only has those channels where you're looking at the points, right, that connect to the different pieces of the body, right? But you know the channels are there, they house the points, but then also they each connect into their organs and they connect with each other. So each of the 12 meridians has connecting channels that link it to its paired channel, right? When we were talking about five elements, we discussed how each of the five elements has organ systems attached to it. And so the organs in Chinese medicine are actually paired according to those five elements. And we're going to talk a little bit later on about how, like, the lung meridian and the large intestine meridian, those are both paired together under the metal element. And this, you can find this for all of the rest of the elements and the meridians, but they have connecting channels that lead between it. So the lung channel has a pathway within the body that connects to the large intestine channel because they're paired meridians. All the channels exist, 12 channels. That's where the points live, plus the red and the dew. And then they each have their connecting channel, the Luo connecting channel that leads to their organ pair. They also have a separate channel that sort of branches off from that main meridian, and that is for sinews, right? And it follows a slightly different pathway, maybe a broader pathway, but it's best for um, they run a little bit deeper, and we often use those for muscle tension and pain. And so you'll find that a lot of times, if you're looking at dry needling or things like that, really what people are working on there is what we would call in Chinese medicine a sinew channel. And there are also divergent channels. So not only do you have the connecting channel and then the ones that are specifically very musculoskeletal, the sinew channel, but you also have divergent channels. So every once in a while, you'll get one that sort of shoots off to make a connection to a secondary or a tertiary organ relationship. So as I said, every organ kind of has its pair that's based on its assigned element, but we also have other relationships between the organs, and they work together and interrelate in more complicated ways. And that's where the divergent channels come in. And we've got maps of all of these things. And then the last kind of meridians that we have. So we've got 12 channels. Each of them has a Luo channel and a sinew channel and a divergent channel, right? So we're already talking about 36 channels plus the red and the dew, right? So well, the ren and the dew are part of the sorting meridians. But anyway, the ren and the dew are part of the eight extraordinary meridians. So when all is said and done, we're looking at upwards of 40 different pathways that Chinese medicine has mapped onto the body so that we can really see how everything connects together. And the eight extraordinary meridians are the last ones, and they're the deepest level, right, of channel, and they're responsible for some of the deepest endocrine work, and we use them a lot for emotional issues. I kind of look at them as like Chinese medicine embryology, and I've got a bunch of ideas for talks on that later. I love to talk about the eight extraordinary meridians. And so if you're interested in listening to how Chinese medicine talks about embryology, or if we're talking about acupuncture for emotional health, there's some really interesting things about those eight extraordinary meridians. But that, again, is above and beyond. And those meridians don't generally have points of their own. So the ren and the dew do have points of their own, but the rest of the eight extraordinary meridians don't have their own points. They use points from the primary 12 channels. So during my education, we were required to memorize all of the different pathways and point locations and the purpose of all of them, but we're not we're going to go ahead and skip that tonight because you're not here for a doctoral degree. So, but you are here, presumably, to find out how this applies to you. So, as you may remember, I said that points don't always need needles, and that's true. We use the points to access certain places on a given channel to create a desired adjustment or course correction. So remember what I said before about flow, right? Needles are our preferred tool of choice because they allow us the ability to make a strong, highly sensitive, and specific course correction within the flow of any particular meridian. So for acupuncturists, like we love to use needles because needles are very targeted, very direct. It's a finesse tool. And so that's why we like to use them. But the points work whether you're stimulating them with a needle or not. So the reason why acupuncture works and even massage styles like Tui Na or Shiatsu, which uses the same meridians, is because the pressure from your fingers can also activate the points and the channels. Um, Show of hands, who here has had a mani-pedi before? Okay, so I'm not alone, right? And what's the best part of the mani-pedi ritual? Hint, it's not the pretty nails, right? It's the hand and foot massage, of course, right? A vast number of acupuncture points are collected on the hands and the feet, particularly at the ankles and the wrists. So oftentimes if you go into an acupuncturist, they only need to access your arms up to the elbows and your legs up to your knees. So today, we're going to talk about 4 specific points on 4 different meridians that you can use to help improve your immune health. We're going to talk to you about where you can find them and why they do what they do, right? So the 4 points that we're going to talk about today are lung 7, stomach 36, large intestine 4, and kidney 1. And we're going to start with lung 7. Now, you may remember from previous lectures that many diseases begin from the exterior with what we call in TCM wind. That's from our lecture on the evils. Also, we can understand that the lung, one of the first organs to be affected by upper respiratory infection, right? And so this point is on the lung channel. And this particular point releases the exterior and expels wind. So we use it frequently if someone's coming in, maybe they've caught a chill, they're just feeling a little run down. You can just kind of release the wind using lung 7, and you can find it by putting your finger on your wrist bone on the thumb side and just sliding it slightly toward the outside of your elbow, right? And you'll find that your finger kind of drops right into the top of that bone and into the hollow. And this is lung 7, right? So when you find these points, you can just press on them. They're likely to be a little bit tender, right? And you find if you press on them for 10 or 15 seconds, right, you'll begin to feel something change or shift. And that, maybe it's that you feel like it's less painful, or maybe it gets more painful, but something will change and shift in that feeling. And all you have to do is sort of do that for just, like 10 to 15 seconds, or you can sort of repeatedly press at them like this, right? Until you begin to feel, I tend to feel a lot like, depending on what point I'm using, the lung channel kind of comes all the way up here and it comes into your chest. And so what I tend to feel is when I'm pressing and massaging my lung channel, I might feel like, oh, the breath just comes a little bit easier, right? And so things like that. So, but that point specifically is for kicking out the wind, bolstering your lung, right? And the lung channel, as I mentioned earlier, is paired with the large intestine channel. And so in fact, the large intestine channel begins where the lung channel ends. And this next point we're going to talk about, which is large intestine 4, is probably the most common acupressure point ever to be prescribed. And we use the point a lot in acupuncture. When we're doing treatments, it's just very strong and has many different uses. You got headache, tooth pain, stomach issues, the list goes on. Today, and for our purposes, we want this point because it regulates defensive chi. And again, you might remember our talk on chi and how there's a particular type whose job it is to just protect against illness. Yeah, this point helps with that. So, of note, This point can also induce labor, and actually, we use this a lot in full-term pregnancy to get the process started more gently than some other modern interventions. So, pregnant folks, this one is not for you. And if anybody has questions about other points to avoid during pregnancy, I'm happy to answer. There aren't that many, and they're pretty easy to avoid. So, maybe we'll do a pregnancy lecture another day, and let me know if you'd be interested in that. So you'll find large intestine 4 by flattening your hand and squeezing your thumb toward the hand until the muscle between your thumb and your hand bulges, right? And you just find the top of that bulge, and then you press down as you relax your hand toward the hand bone. And the point, as it says in the diagram, is roughly midpoint on that metacarpal bone. So it's sort of like midway in the middle of your hand on that bone, right there on the side of your hand. So, and that one, you'll see it. I'm sure you've seen this before. People give this to all the time for like, oh, it's a great way to cure headaches. And in fact, it is. If you got a headache, it's the first go-to for that. The second go-to is actually on the foot. Somebody chime in. We'll see if we can guess that one. But anyway, the next point we're going to talk about is called stomach 36, right? And that's another point that's used all the time in clinic. So it's just so versatile, right? There are mentions of it in some of the oldest texts as being the key to longevity. And when moxa or moxibustion is applied daily, it can, apparently it preserves your long life. So I myself have been participating in a new moon ritual where we apply moxa to this point for the first 8 days every new moon. And I have found that it has boosted my energy during those periods of the last couple of months. So in this context, we're including it because it supports the chi and it nourishes both the blood and the yin. It's a very safe point, tonifying point to use, particularly if you think you might be coming down with something and you maybe are worried about tonifying the pathogen rather than tonifying the human. We'll use stomach 36 for that. So to find stomach 36, like to use the little indents that come right underneath like right at the base of your patella. There's those little indentations under your knee, right? And so if you find those, and then you take your hand, the width of your knuckles from your pinky side of your hand over to the index finger side, right there at the knuckles. If you take that width, right, and you line it up at those indentations, and you take just below that measurement there, right along the side of the shin bone, right? That's stomach 36. And I actually like to sort of massage my stomach channel from that point all the way down the shin bone, on just the outside of the shin bone, all the way down to the ankle. So right below the knee to down to the ankle, and you'll get a lot of good points on the stomach channel. So that's kind of how I like to activate that, but the point itself is actually right there, just we call it fourth zone, but it's just that one hand breadth right down from those indentations below your knee. And that's stomach 36. So again, you press that, you massage your stomach channel, you're activating that channel, you're boosting your chi, you're giving yourself a little bit more energy that you can use to fight off illness, right? I wanted to include a point on the foot just to kind of, balance out the rest of the other points, which are on the upper part of the body. And there's a lot I could have chosen, but I went with kidney 1 for 2 reasons. The first is that it's a really powerful point for grounding as it descends the excess from the head and it calms the spirit. And I think both of those things are really important in immune regulation. We're gathering so much science right now about how stress just wreaks havoc on the body. And this is an amazing point for just that. So, the second one is that while I personally love to have this point needled, it is a strong point, and needling it can be pretty intense for the first 1 to 2 seconds. I always maintain that acupuncture should be painless when executed correctly. However, there are a few points that can be tender and are actually meant to be. And so I usually warn patients when we're going to use those points. And if someone is needle phobic, I work around it. So, but that being said, acupressure, or again, moxibustion, on this point can be amazing. So kidney 1 is on the sole of the foot. It says 1/3 of the way from the base of the toes to the heel. But if you massage your foot right there where the arch meets the ball, you'll find it. It's just sort of right there. Again, it's like if you just put your hand and rub it just off the ball of the foot into that indentation. So many of the acupuncture points on the body are located in the hills and the valleys. And when you're massaging in the approximate right place, your body will tend to tell you when you've hit the right point. And as I mentioned before, needles are a finesse tool, and so precise point location is important, but fingers and hands are less precise, and therefore massaging in and around the point to get results is sufficient to give you a little treatment. So you'll feel it when you hit the right spot. All right, so that is our um, mini acupressure lesson for the evening and talk about how those meridians connect with each other. So I hope you enjoyed the lesson and the tutorial. And if you have any questions, stay on and I'll take the last few minutes here to address them. And if you want to have a more personal, in-depth Q&A, I do free 20-minute consultations either over the phone or via private medical video chat or in person at my clinic here in Tainault. I do these lectures every 2 weeks, and so let me know if there's a subject you'd like me to cover because I'm almost sure there's a point for that. So have a lovely evening, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Thanks so much.